you or have you ever been in possession of any undisclosed information that, if it was released to the public, would significantly alter the discourse surrounding the phenomenon itself?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
I'm here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
The whole fleet of them, what's on the ASA? My God.
Unidentified.
The acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Anomalous.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1 and 2,000 reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's special edition of the Unidentified Anomalous Podcast. Joining me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Tom Thompson. Tom, who have we got joining us on the show today?
So we all have a personal top 10 list as far as people we'd like to speak to on our podcast. For those of us that create content and do interviews like we do, there's always that short list of really incredible people that we would love to have the opportunity to speak with. And we are extremely fortunate to have one of those individuals joining us for a conversation today. And that's constitutional lawyer and UFO researcher, Daniel Sheehan. Daniel is a distinguished constitutional lawyer and a very passionate UFO researcher. Over his illustrious career, Daniel has been involved in numerous high-profile legal cases and has served as a legal consultant and advisor in fields that intersect with public policy, human rights, and social justice. Notably, Daniel has also made significant contributions to the field of ufology, where he has investigated and advocated for greater transparency and disclosure of government documents related to the phenomenon. His unique blend of legal expertise and keen interest in UFOs provides him with a profound insight into the complexities of both fields, making him a sought-after expert and speaker on issues at the crossroads of law, policy, and the unknown. Daniel Sheehan, welcome to the Unidentified Anomalous Podcast. So, Daniel, thanks for being on the show with us today. We deeply appreciate it. It's a personal honor and privilege for me because I've been following your work for such a long time. So let's just get right into it. There's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. There's a feeling in the community, and there's ebbs and flows, obviously, for there's frustration amongst a lot of people as far as waiting for different things to happen, whether it be the next big piece of evidence or Grush's op-ed and such. I'm really curious to hear what message you could send to the individuals that are in the community right now that are frustrated and feeling more impatient as each day passes as far as waiting for things to happen. What would you say to those people right now?
Well, what I would say is that that I've been personally involved in this whole operation since January of 1977. So and I've represented half a dozen people in organizations, etc., working toward this particular objective. Between December 22nd of 2023, when people first learned about the Senate version of what the 64-page bill that was being proposed by the United States Senate, the coming together of all of the matrix of forces that were behind the decision on the part of the United States Senate to decide to put forward basically a 7-year program for the controlled disclosure of virtually all of the information about the UFO issue and the non-human intelligence that they assume is responsible for it.
Let's increase transparency on UAPs by using a model that works, by following what the federal government did 30 years ago with the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. They established a presidentially appointed board to review and release these records, and it was a huge success. We should do the same here with UAPs.
Is a fairly short period of time. We're basically 6 months out from the final formulation on the part of the Senate forces to take this bold step and confront the House of Representatives with this demand that this be done. It's extraordinarily important to remember that the Senate, all the powers that go into deciding what decisions are that'll be made by the United States Senate they're now operational to get this program put into place. And there is a temporary setback that we've run into. But look at, you need to remember that the bill, the 24-page bill that did get passed through the House of Representatives, has now commanded, all 6 of the United States military services, all 18 of the United States intelligence agencies, all 32 of the United States Defense Department agencies to cough up all this information that they've got. They've ordered them to gather it all together. They have 300 days in order to do this, which goes to October 18th. October 18th of 2024, they have been commanded to gather all this information together and to have it be ready to be provided to the National Archives, and which would mean it would get provided to the Gang of 8 in the Congress. It would get provided to the heads of the Senate Armed Services Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, and the Senate Intelligence Committee. They would get, those who had the proper clearances would get access to this information. That is a humongous event that even in the 24-page bill has now been ordered and signed into law by the president, by President Biden. So that's what's really going on right now. If you want to stop and talk about what is one of the 2 major dynamics that's going on right now, is all of those agencies are having to be involved in gathering all this information together. So they're scrambling all around trying to figure out what rationales they can come up with for keeping it secret. What are they going to do about the order that everything that's 25 years old or more has to be immediately presumptively revealed to the public, unless the president himself orders it to be postponed. This is an extraordinary event that is going on right now. And when you have now additional information that the United States Senate has declared that when the 64-page bill had removed from it some of the enforcement mechanisms that they had, the right to issue subpoenas, the right to take depositions, the right to go to the United States Justice Department and get people prosecuted if they don't turn over the information. A lot of those enforcement provisions, are now going to be reinstated on the part of the United States Senate. They're not going to take it lying down. That the House of Representatives cut out those provisions, but did pass this extraordinarily important mandate that all of this information be prepared, and what it says in the 24-page bill. And then all of that information, after having been gathered together as of October 18th of this year, has to be turned over to the National Archives as soon as possible. Now, in the previous bill, the 64-page bill, it said it had to be turned over immediately, right? Now, for lawyers, there's a lot of difference there, right? And so that we're not happy about the fact that language got changed. And so that we're now coming back in a new Senate version of the bill saying, immediately, you got to turn this over immediately. We're not going to get into this dynamic of chasing you around by you coming up with excuses that your dog ate your homework or something. These 2 major events that are going on, the actual outstanding order from the United States Congress signed by the President of the United States commanding that they gather all this information together and then turn it over as soon as possible after that to the National Archives, is underway. And the second item of the United States Senate coming back for a second run at this thing to try to put back into the bill as many as the enforcement mechanisms as they can get in, right? So that these two major events are going on right at the present time. As I say, that I've been specifically asked not to talk about the details of the whole thing, but that we have been successful in getting Wyden, for example, Senator Wyden, to issue a statement kind of describing what the content is. That we're going to have muscled up provisions protecting the whistleblowers. They don't tell you exactly what it is, or what the details are. We're going to be muscling up the mandate that an important one, the mandate that the private companies turn over their information. Okay. And that's one that the House took out of there, that they left in the command to go to the government structures, but that they were getting all antsy saying, oh no, when you start ordering private industry to do something, you don't have the same kind of authority that you have to be ordering government officials to do certain things.
I was just going to say that's one of the issues that the guys over at Skinwalker Ranch had, wasn't it? That they were worried that, hang on a second, the US government can now come in and take over whatever they want, and it's ours. I know that was one of their concerns.
Well, that's I have difference of opinion with some of those people, as you know. The problem has never been, oh, we found our own flying saucer, and oh, by the way, what crap, oh, maybe we're going to find a flying saucer buried under the ground, and then you're going to try to take that back. That's not what the problem is here. Well, the demand is made initially is the information, whatever information you have, if you've gotten it from working with the United States government. The United States government taxpayers have been paying for your work to do research and investigation stuff, and you've got the information, you have to turn it over. You have to, and all the bill was providing at this stage is you turn it over to the government. You turn it over to the Congress of the United States, which after all is the government of the United States. They're the elected leaders of the United States. That you have to turn that over. So it's not really true that they think they're going to dig up their own private UFO. That's not what's happening here. What's happening is the private aerospace industry wants to be able to possess and get patent rights on information that's been given to them and technology that's been given to them by the United States government. And they think that somehow they have a right to claim it because they've devoted some time and attention paid for by the government. And that what it is that what they're trying to do is succeed in getting something that is analogous to what university professors have secured. That the university professors lobbied, I think, through the AAUP, the Association of American University Professors, and they got permission to be able to get patents on information that they have developed from government contracts. Even though the government paid for the contract and paid them to do certain kind of research, they've taken the position that if they come up with some other technology or some other insight as a result of the work they were doing on the government-paid, government-financed project, they get to patent it and to get private patents. And so that's what they're trying to do here. Now, what they're trying to do is extend this beyond the university setting and say, oh, if a private contractor had UFO technology put into their hands, and they've been doing experiments on it, trying to figure out how it works. If they figured out how it works, even though they were being paid by the United States government to get that information, that they ought to be able to patent that and own it. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. Not oh, what about if we dig up a private, a UFO? In the same way that it's not about with Jacques Vallée saying, oh, I was put into possession of a particular piece of metal that apparently fell off or was ejected from, a UFO, and I'm really upset over the fact that someone may come and try to take that away from me. They're trying to enlist libertarian values, over basically an entire field that anybody in their right mind would understand that it doesn't cover. How about the fact that there's an extraterrestrial civilization? You think that's kind of a piece of information that you have a right to own? Oh, I'm going to copyright the fact that there's a whole extraterrestrial civilization here. I don't mean to make fun of it, but I want to make fun of it.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I mean, it's crazy that the mainstream media isn't picking this up as much as they should do. And as you said, you
Ugh.
know, we've got this countdown now till this information is released, and nobody's talking about it. There should be
Yeah.
we should have a countdown clock somewhere. It's
They should
crazy.
be
But
running. October 18th,
Yes.
there should be a clock, right in everybody's mind about how fast we're getting to this spot.
We need it front and center on your New Paradigm Institute webpage. I think there should be a countdown clock.
Right.
I'm interested though. Do you have any knowledge as to the enforcement mechanism behind it? You know, I mean, we all know what trouble we've had with Arrow in the past. Their UFO historical report was, quite frankly, a steaming pile of dog crap. Pardon my language. But how can we trust the government, the US government, to enforce this, make sure they get all the information when certain branches of the US government haven't been performing their duties perhaps the way they should be in the first place?
Well, you got two questions there. One is, do I have any information as to how they're planning to do it? The second one is, how would we go about effectively doing that? With regard to the first question, I can't answer that because I'm not supposed to. Okay. The second part of it is that I have some ideas of what it is that might be done to enforce this. And I would direct your attention to the original 64-page bill. That under the bill, the panel that was to be set up, the 9-person panel that was to be appointed by the president, was to be specifically invested with the authority to go to the Attorney General of the United States and ask the Attorney General of the United States to file a motion in the federal district court to have the court issue a subpoena to the holder of the information, requiring that they turn over the information to the panel. Okay. Now, what that gives you 3 different levels of protection. Number one, the panel would have to vote by a majority to decide to subpoena some information. Secondly, the Attorney General would have to make a decision as to whether or not he was going to present the request for a subpoena to a federal district court. And thirdly, the federal district court is going to have to make a decision as to whether they think that is a constitutionally authorized demand on the part of Congress. So that they would have to be saying, for example, is this undertaken to get information to enable them to legislate, which is the constitutional authority of Congress? Or is it some kind of a fishing expedition that they have some ulterior motive, political motive, et cetera? So that there are 3 levels of protection built into that. I found that to be an adequately shielded process. That you're not going to get these runaway committees of Congress going after information just to harass somebody or something. So I think that's a perfectly logical system, much more conservative than some other areas where the Congress has designated certain committees in Congress to have the authority to issue subpoenas directly if they chose to do so. And then they could have U.S. Marshals go and arrest somebody, if they didn't comply. So that isn't even what they've demanded to have here. They just demanded to have this 3-tiered protected system of having virtually all 3 of the branches of government, as you'll notice. The congressionally created panel to make the decision to get the information, the executive branch signing in with the Attorney General, and the judicial branch that was specifically created to bring to bear all 3 branches of our government in coming to a collective decision that this information had to be turned over to Congress. And I think that's a sufficient mechanism.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it would be. It's just that there's always the major concern that history repeats itself. This cover-up has been going on longer than I've been alive, and possibly even longer than I originally thought. And I suppose, just based on all, because I talk to a lot of different people in the community, well-known and not so well-known, and there's always that little thing in the back of their head that tells them, well, what if this fails? Like, what if something goes wrong? And, from where you're sitting and the work that you're doing, and we don't have to go into detail about the things that you can't speak about, but you personally, Danny, how do you feel about the way things are going right now and the direction that they're moving in as a whole?
Oh, I think this is extraordinarily positive. You know that as I say, it's hard to overemphasize how important it is that the entire United States Senate has virtually unanimously come to an agreement to put forward and pass into law this 64-page bill to set up basically a comprehensive program for undertaking a controlled disclosure of this information. And there's a
It's a big
7-year
deal.
time period put on it. So, you know, that no matter how much one is unhappy with the ability to them postponing certain pieces of information from being made immediately public, you know, the timeline on the entire statutory scheme was only going to go for 7 years. So that, you know, if you had a program being promulgated by the United States Senate is somewhere between 2023 and 2030, you know, that they're going to be divulging all of this information to you. Not only the information that had to be immediately available, was 25 years or older, but all the information, that not a single bit of the information was allowed to be classified permanently. You know, that it had to be all made available. And so when I looked at that, I said, gee, you know, when you think in terms of this being almost, well, I've been at this for 47 years, you know, as it turns out, you know, in a 47-year period to be looking at a 6-month period here, where or a 300-day period, where we're going to have to be waiting for some of this information while the process is going on. You know, that I thought that if we had at our disposal the enforcement mechanisms that were provided for by the Senate, you know, we could get at the information. I've done litigation for 50 years now. You give me subpoena power, and I will find out, you know, what I'm after, you know, and we know how to do that, and have done it repeatedly. And so that's what we were after, and that's what we're still after.
I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be alive, and I don't think we can, you know, underestimate or overestimate how important this time is. And we really need to get to a position though where mainstream media are going to take this more seriously and bring it up. At the moment, we seem to have News Nation, and that's about everything. In the UK, where I'm from, obviously, I mean, you just don't see anything unless it's perhaps in the Daily Mail, which isn't exactly the most reputable of newspapers. But when do you think that mainstream media is really going to, you know, take up the mantle on this and start running with it, or do you think that they are being suppressed and it's relegated to the likes of News Nation to make sure that everyday people don't really pick this up or take any notice of it?
I think it's when the national security state people who are embedded into the major news media are instructed by the national security state superiors that they need to have this reported, and they will do so in connection with, in commensurate with the controlled disclosure process. They've already decided, you know, that there's a controlled disclosure process that they're willing to cooperate with, you know, except that the aerospace industry is fighting back, you know, saying, wait a second, you know, we're not satisfied with this. You know, we want to be assured that we're going to get to keep patent rights to this technology, you know, and they've been effective temporarily.
We put out on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that you were obviously going to be coming on the show, and we opened it up to people to ask questions, and a lot of the questions were based around abductions, and I feel that abductions are one of those things that are mentioned very often. It's like everybody wants to sidetrack and not talk about it. You're talking about private aerospace and what they want to protect, but maybe perhaps do you think that the fact that if the US government are going to admit to abductions, do you think there's some incriminating evidence there, perhaps that they've allowed this to happen, and that's why we're not hearing the talk of abductions in Congress and everybody's literally just focusing on the technology?
Well, I don't believe that it was necessary for the United States government to agree to the abductions. They don't have any capacity to stop them. No, so
I've had that same
I don't
thought.
think that's what it was. That if I were to speculate about what the agreements might be that they're concerned about, is that there might conceivably be some kind of an agreement that the extraterrestrial civilization, whatever its juridical format is, of what type of cooperation they have among the 4 or 5 different species, at least, that are coming and going here, there would be given access, just like a straight commercial venture, be given access to some percentage of the natural resources of our planet, like any nation state would get, in exchange for probably for technology, for the actual not for getting permission to abduct people, but to get access to a percentage of the natural resources of our planet, that they'd be viewed as an economic partner, that there was some kind of an alliance that was struck authorizing them to have access. And who knows what some of the natural resources are that they might want to have access to that we might not even be that concerned about. That they want to get samples, for example, of different life forms, in the jungles, different kinds of minerals that we might not even find that absolutely important to us, but if an agreement like that were struck and someone said, that's not a great loss from our point of view, if we could get access to some technology that we could feather into our economy and have it bolster the same power elite that are presently in charge. One of the things that they're concerned about is the undermining of the present elements of power on our planet.
Well, do you think that, like with the abduction phenomena, like you said, if they just want to go ahead and abduct, they're just going to go ahead and abduct? Why do you think any of these extraterrestrial or whatever they are at the end of the day, why do you think they would even have to strike a deal with us? Why won't they just take it? Do you think it's perhaps they might have like their own code of ethics or prime directive that they follow very strictly? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't think they do need to have permission. That's why I'm saying I don't think that would have been one of the essential elements of any such agreement. I think that they're perfectly capable of going and getting those things. I think that
I guess that's what I'm saying is like, why would they even have to strike any kind of agreement, even about resources in exchange for technology? That's what I really mean is like the abductions aside.
That's a better question. And that would be because they would think that would be the logical way of establishing, economic relations with our people in elite positions of authority. And it's a much longer term project, of really being able to have a diplomatic relationship. Now, all of this is by way of speculation as to, what types of agreements might be struck. But I'm not at liberty to really talk about any particular pieces of information that I've been given about what the nature might be of some of these agreements that they're concerned about.
It's interesting that you're talking about resources as well, because everybody, well, most people have watched the talk Carl Nell did at SALT last week, and they were talking towards the end of that talk about post scarcity and going down that route, and it makes you wonder why they're coming here, what reason they're coming here for, and what they need. And I said this on our show last week, as mankind, if we were in a position where we still needed resources from other places and we had the ability to traverse beyond our stars, beyond our solar system, we would be a dangerous force to be reckoned with a less advanced civilization. So I suppose we're in a situation where we've got to hope that they don't really need too much from us, because we only need to look at ourselves in the mirror to realize how we would act as a species, certainly with the leaders that we have around the world and the way they're acting at the moment.
That's part of the problem is we're spending an awful lot of time looking in the mirror and thinking that we're seeing them, and we're really seeing ourselves. As that, we're saying, well, wait a second, if I were they, here's what I would do, and therefore we ought to be really afraid of them. That's I would just suggest that there's an awful lot of that going on right now.
You see, you can see it as well with certain people that they like to look at the phenomena from a very religious point of view. Everybody sort of bends it to the way that they want to look at it.
They prism it through the lens of their own worldview.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? Speaking of that, just based on a lot of the things that I know from watching a million of your interviews, I'm really curious how where you are and where your mind sits now, as far as the idea that our species was either seeded or perhaps genetically modified by one of these intelligences. How do you approach that particular subject nowadays?
It's one of the issues that we've identified in our New Paradigm Institute for investigation. I mean, that's the criterion that we're using right now. What specific questions rise to a level of importance and salience that we would actually assign resources to time and personnel to investigate those things? That's obviously one of the issues that does so qualify. And there, what is the agenda number one? Is there any kind of collective juridical instrumentality that the different species have created? Is there some sort of galactic federation? Is there some sort of tacit set of agreements that they have, the different species? That's all predicated upon an assumption that the different species appear to potentially be from different planetary systems.
Right.
But there's an assumption that is true. And so therefore there would be a requirement for some sort of juridical relationship that they have of making treaties or something, or agreements with each other to how to cooperate in coming to our planet. We don't know yet. But based on all the different investigations that I've supervised, down over a 50-year period, we've developed a protocol for kind of elevating certain questions to an adequate level that merit the devotion of time and energy to trying to answer them in some kind of a systemic order of priorities. But these are some of them right now. And that all goes on inside our New Paradigm Institute. So I'm at liberty to talk about those things. I'm not at liberty to talk about things that may have been confided to me because of for example, my attorney-client relationship.
Absolutely.
With Alexander, my attorney-client relationship that I had with the Disclosure Project for 20 years. There are things that I've been put into possession of that I need to be, I guess I could say, more careful than I might have been a little bit in the past.
You know what?
About being careful about what I talk about.
I think this is an appropriate question that it may not violate your
right.
attorney and any of the rules that you have to abide by as a lawyer. How is Lou doing? Because we, as a community, we've been following him for a long time now. A lot of us out here very much support him, and then we see the statements that he's made without specifics. I mean, how is he?
I wouldn't be authorized to share that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Any information I would have on that, I would get only because I'm the attorney.
Right. Yeah.
Fair
no,
enough.
that's fair. Well, we wish. I guess we'll turn that into a statement and say that we wish him all the best at this point, and we're rooting for
Absolutely.
him as it stands.
As do I.
Absolutely, and as that that goes to all the other whistleblowers out there waiting in the wings, and it's Tom and I have our own contacts. We speak to some people, which obviously, like you, we're not going to talk about. But there does seem to be a real fear in that whole sort of group at the moment. And it'd be really good to see some more whistleblower protections come in place, but also some security for these guys. They're coming forwards. They potential to lose their retirement, lose their security clearance. They want to go to Congress, but Congress can't pay for their travel and accommodation for them to do so. Have you any idea of any mechanisms that might be in place to enable a fund for these people to get the money that they need to enable them to essentially whistleblow? Or is it a mantle that the community at large could take up and help support these whistleblowers and enable them to come forward?
Well, let me say it this way, is that one of the missions of our New Paradigm Institute is to provide the kind of protection to the whistleblowers that they need. That would entail the drafting of legislation and the mobilizing of citizen support on behalf of that legislation to get it passed to protect them against certain specific kinds of retaliatory action. It would also entail the facilitating of getting the whistleblowers brought to and be able to communicate with the people in Congress that need to have the information to support the legislation that we would want to have, not only for additional protections of them, but also for divulging the substance of what it is that the Congress wants to know about. Those are things. Now we would have to be careful as lawyers in the New Paradigm Institute to provide the kind of financial assistance to them to come to Washington D.C., for example, to meet with a particular member of Congress, for example, et cetera. We don't want to be viewed as being in the business of paying them for their testimony.
Sure.
Because people are going to jump all over them by saying, "Oh, you're being paid to testify by the New Paradigm Institute." So we have to be guarded about that. But within the normal parameters of what a set of lawyers can do, or a law firm can do to represent a particular client, what we're doing is we're following all of those rules. Okay, we're being extremely careful in the discussions that we're having with potential whistleblowers, the conversations we're having with actual whistleblowers, and we're consulting ethics lawyers, etc., on how to conduct ourselves in a way that may be even a little bit overcautious, more than we may have in the past. I'm getting to the point where I'm actually having to get some training as a statesperson, is in addition to being a lawyer and an advocate and a litigator, where I used to just say, "Fuck you, who cares?" You're keep me up and I'll kick your ass. But I can't do that anymore. I have to be respectful now of relations that we have in communications with Congress, in communications with Justice Department people, in communications with people in both political parties, as you well know. Yeah. I mean, we have very clear ongoing access to people in virtually every single element in the Congress, in both the House and the Senate right now. And we have to be extremely careful about what they think we ought to be doing. And so that I'm having to sort of integrate those kind of concerns now. So it's not as quite as I wouldn't use the term freewheeling as I have been in the past. I mean, I've been engaged in litigation with these people for 50 years. For example, I remember when I was legal counsel in the New York Times at the Cahill Gordon firm in the Pentagon Papers case. I'd be in chambers with Judge Murray Gerfine. I think I've mentioned it. With Whitney or Seymour, who was the United States Attorney representing the Nixon administration, trying to get an injunction against this. And he says, "Oh, I can't tell you what I say." He said, there's pieces of information in these 47 volumes, if made public, would irrevocably damage the national security of the United States. And I would be sitting in chambers and I'd say, "Oh yeah, like what?" That's not the most diplomatic way to be. And I think even the judge took a little bit of umbrage at it until such time as he asked Whitney or Seymour, "Well, how about me? You can at least, if you're asking me to issue an injunction, you can at least share with me what you're asserting are some of the irrevocable damages that are going to happen." And he said, No, I can't tell you either because you don't have any security clearance. And then the judge took umbrage at that. And so at least I got away with that kind of freewheeling kind of advocacy. So now we're in a different position. The New Paradigm Institute is in sort of a unique position. It's developed the trust of people inside the Congress, inside the whistleblower community, inside the intelligence community, inside the military, inside the media. I would hope, that part of that's been predicated upon my willingness to tell you things that other people wouldn't tell you up to this point. But as you can tell, I think we've now crossed into a realm where we're so close to being on the brink of getting an actual workable enforcement system in place to compel the disclosure of this information that we need to be a little bit more careful now. because I think we're on the brink of succeeding here.
I just want to go back to what you were saying earlier about, when I said about monetary fund to help whistleblowers come forward financially with costs and things like that. And you were saying, it's difficult when money's involved because perceptions of people are like, well, you're paying for this, you're paying for disclosure. And this is one of the comments, and I really hate this comment, and I hope that you've got something good that you could put out there to people just to combat this statement. But a lot of people are talking about, obviously, Lou Elizondo's book coming out. Tom and myself are both very much looking forward to it, as most of the community is. But there are some people out there that are saying that it's selling disclosure. Now, obviously, that's not a statement that I agree with or one that Tom agrees with. But what could you say to people that are reading that and questioning the ethics behind it?
What I would say is, anybody who is so ignorant that they think you're going to make a lot of money on your first book is ignorant of reality itself, and it's that they don't really understand. I mean, Lou has. I'm not at liberty to discuss all that, but the bottom line is, there's no rational way that anybody with a knowledge of any degree at all about the realities of publishing books and things like that is going to think that Lou is in the process of selling disclosure. That what he's doing is he's trying to figure out what the various means are that he is explicitly authorized by the Department of Defense, Office of Pre-Publication Review and Security are going to explicitly authorize him to talk about. So that he's not selling disclosure. What he's doing is he's making available in the public interest, basically, in the best way that he can, the information that he's allowed to share, and he's following careful protocols to get it out, and he realizes that that if in fact the United States Defense Department Office of Pre-Publication Review and Security explicitly greenlight the release of particular information, that this is not inconsistent with the interests of the Defense Department, right. And with the interests of the national security community. That whatever the process is by means of which decisions are being made on the part of the national security community to change the policies of keeping this completely secret and lying about it and punishing people for trying to reveal any of it, to whatever degree there's been a substantial change in policy here, that the people that we're working with are trying to adhere to those criteria, right? And in a sense, be part of that disclosure process. Now, other people are critical of that.
Right.
Say, oh well, you're not really part of the UFO community that's going to really try to get this all exposed to the public. All you're doing is playing some kind of game of figuring out what the controlled disclosure process is going to be, the slow rollout that the national security state has an interest in doing. And it's not that their perspective is completely invalid, but that this is, if I can say, this is the grown-up world, boys and girls. This is like grown-ups. This is how we're going to do the process. We're going to get the information made available in this progressive way to get it to people as rapidly as we can. And we, at the same time, one of the other missions of the New Paradigm Institute is trying to figure out how we can take the steps necessary to integrate this information into our present culture.
Right.
I'm not a great, anybody who knows my history knows that I'm no great fan of the particular planetary economic system that we have in place right now. That has 10 million people a year starving to death, while other people are, throwing half of their meals out the window, or feeding them to their dogs. This is not the best economic system on the planet, and so that I'm very much in favor of some significant amendments to the present economic system that we have. But it's different than blowing the whole thing up, just rolling a grenade into the middle of it and exploding the whole thing. So that we're the New Paradigm Institute is engaged in a process of trying to determine what the most efficacious way we can possibly get this information rolled out to our people, and have it have effects of perhaps amending, reforming, helping to constructively modify our economic system, our political system, our social systems, etc., our levels of knowledge of the world of science, but in a way that is absorbable, a way that can really constructively assist our human family in making as much progress as we can possibly make in a sound and responsible way. And that's what we're doing.
I mean, we've spoken about private aerospace. We've talked about abductions as two possible reasons why disclosure hasn't happened. The other one, the big one, is also energy and energy companies all around the world and what disclosure would mean for them. And that has got so much to do with the economics behind the world, around the world.
Okay.
Most of the cost of buying an item is the energy that was used every step of the way to produce that item. So if we move over to a free renewable energy source, then that's going to drastically change the economic system of the world. In fact, you'd almost need to find a new way of operating, because it just I think it's hard to understand. But there's massive energy hikes, price hikes on energy as it is. I mean, I live in Morocco at the moment. I'm traveling around the world with my family, and for a can of propane that in the UK would have cost me £60, so what's that, $70? You're buying here for the equivalent of about £4.50. You can see already how much these energy companies control and influence the world. So I wonder how much influence they have over the disclosure process at the moment, or withholding disclosure. And this goes back to what Representative Burchett and Luna were saying to the Department of Energy only last week, and the interesting questions that they put to them.
What is the responsibility of the Federal Protective Services within the Nuclear Security Administration?
Are you talking about transporting fuels?
No, ma'am. I want you to speak. I was going to follow up with the numerous reports by the Federal Protective Services officers describing suspicious occurrences of UAPs over nuclear facilities.
I especially liked Luna's last question when she was talking about JSOC and trying to get them to confirm their association with them.
Does the DOE currently work with JSOC in order to handle security measures?
We work with all of the security entities around the federal government. We're part of an overall all-of-government effort on both cyber as well as national security.
Do you guys work with JSOC? Yes or
no? Yes, we do.
There's no doubt in anybody's mind who has a political IQ above room temperature, that the petroleum industry on the planet has an extraordinary influence on everything, and not the least of which is paying millions of dollars in cash to campaigns of people that are running for election, and then paying millions and millions of dollars to get them into positions where they can chair critical committees in Congress that can then make decisions that are beneficial to them, legislatively. There's no doubt about that, and it's a fundamental flaw in our democratic system that really has to be addressed. And part of the responsibility of the New Paradigm Institute is to try to point out these things to people in the context of this issue, where we have across the board political support for disclosure and for a much more accelerated disclosure here. That what we're trying to do is say, look, in the context of bringing about a resolution of this extraordinarily important issue, we're trying to do whatever we can to bring about the kind of responsible, effective reforms in our economic system, in our political system, in our national security systems, that we're trying to bring a level of responsibility into all of these areas that at least on the basis of 50 years of experience out in the world, I've come to believe are supported by a vast majority of people who are really informed on the subject. There are people even inside some of the unjust economic structures that we have who wish that it'd be better, wish that for their own benefit, for their own potential future viability, in fact, to have some kind of reforms, but they don't feel free to initiate those reforms themselves because they're too beholden to their stockholders or they're too beholden to their allies, that they don't feel that they can do this. And so that to that extent, the New Paradigm Institute is performing a function but for their lack of ability to do it, they don't know how to do it, right? And we who work with the people and live among the people and are very much interested in promoting and promulgating the public interest are seen as people who can talk about that stuff and who can make proposals that are informed and intelligent. I studied my American foreign policy under Henry Kissinger, at Harvard College. So I'm not stupid. I'm not unaware of what their concerns are. I studied constitutional law at Harvard Law School. They're not exactly the most radical source of information in the world. And so that what we're trying to do is within the constitutional structures of our American government, with which we're really quite familiar in detail, we're trying to bring about as much constructive, effective, and responsible change as we can that will enable our culture to effectively absorb the knowledge and information that can be provided to us by an extraterrestrial civilization that may have as much as 1 billion years more experience than we do.
It's remarkable to think about. That's one of the major issues that I think is at hand currently, right? So you're talking to myself and Digby, and our mindset is way further down the field than, say, like the average individual. I'm an experiencer, so that's, I'm in my own world, obviously. Digby has seen some things. So how do you respond to individuals that will look at New Paradigm Institute or even look at our media group, New Paradigm Media Group? We just happen to have the same name by chance. How do you respond to people that think that you're just essentially running a cult and that we're all LARPing out here and playing make-believe? Like, there's people who still think this entire issue is moot and they think that none of this exists. Like, I have had conversations with people online where they're like, you're literally pretending, you are making things up, this is all imaginary, there's no such thing as flying saucers or any of these craft were not being visited. Like, how do we get through to them?
Well, one of the first things that one learns as a public education person is that you aren't going to be able to convince everybody on certain things. Of
course,
the famous quote of Abraham Lincoln, is that you can fool all the people some of the time. You can fool some of the people all the time, and you can fool some of the people all the time, but this is the group. This is the group that you can fool all the time because they don't bother to really explore other alternative views, right? And they get locked in their own little silo. They only talk to people who agree with them. They only watch news. They only watch either Fox News or MSNBC, or they only read the New York Times, or they only read Epoch Times. That they do that. In order to try to influence them, you would have to get down into challenging some of the most basic aspects of their worldview.
Right.
In that we don't. So you make a decision in being a public education person to deal with the people who are the most amenable to understand what you're talking about to begin with, and then you try to work your way through the other layers of a culture in a community to get down to that hardcore group that that no matter what you tell them, no matter what you show them, it's so violative of some deeply unconscious set of beliefs that they have, that they can't do it without it shattering their entire sense of who they are, right? And so, we're not here to try to dislodge everybody on the planet from their own vision of themselves and who they are and what their self-value is. What we're trying to deal with a substantial majority of the people in the world in whose interest it is to be better informed about this, and that they have at least the tools that are necessary to follow logical explanations. And we're going to the greatest lengths that we can to provide the type of evidence to them that would pass the muster of the federal rules of civil procedure as being credible and being reliable information that would enable a judge, for example, in a trial to instruct a jury that they're perfectly entitled to believe this information if they choose to, right? There are other things that a judge will say, look, I'm going to take judicial notice of the fact that I'm not going to put this question of fact to you because it's ridiculous. Now that's a dangerous area to cut off juries from being able to get access to certain testimony and stuff. But the bottom line is that we're applying the federal rules of civil procedure. We're following preliminary investigation rules that are governed by the Rule 11 of the federal rules of civil procedure to say that before a lawyer can stand before a jury and make assertions to the jury, the lawyer has to have undertaken enough independent investigation to be able to assure himself or herself that information is true, right? That can be abused by courts and by lawyers. The bottom line is that we're doing that. So the New Paradigm Institute is involved in engaging in exactly that set of investigations about the various questions that you would ask. What information do we have about there being some kind of common juridical instrument or entity that the extraterrestrial species are coordinating their decision making through? What evidence is there that there's been some kind of an agreement struck on the part of some aspect of either our American government or by the collective governments of our planet with this juridical entity, if it exists? What is the evidence supportive of the fact that individuals have actually been abducted, and actually taken into custody by an extraterrestrial being? These are basic questions, and I've spent 47 years interviewing people, testing their credibility, testing their stories, looking for corroborative evidence of their stories, etc. And so we're compiling. One of the things we're doing at the New Paradigm Institute is we're compiling 100 facts that we're being willing to say, look, this is factual, what we're telling you, and that we stand ready to show you the evidence if you're open to it and you're interested in it. And we're going to be preparing documentary films to show you that this is true. And these are free documentary films from our point of view. We've got a production company down in Los Angeles that is willing to produce those for free for us, so that we can make these things available. As you know, that there's an extraordinary constituency here for this issue. I mean, people in all kinds of walks of life that you might not expect, they're going to jump up and down and say, yes, absolutely. What can I do to help you? And what we say is a 501c3, we want you to help us, and that we want you to do so, not because you're getting paid for it or you're using it to make a profit or something. We want you to do it because it's an important thing to do. And that's what's going to save us. That's what's going to save our whole human family, to be able to get that kind of cooperation from people like this right here. You're not paying me to do this interview. I'm not paying you to do the interview to help get us more information to the people. People sharing out of goodwill the time and energy and resources that they have to bring about this new era in our human family is what is going to get us through. And there are people that are all locked in their little boxes and say, I'm not going to lift my hand unless I get money for it, and I'm not going to do anything unless I'm motivated by a profit motive. That's fine. I mean, we know that they exist. What we're going to try to do is, to be frank, to atrophy them. that they're eventually going to be eclipsed by those of us who have public interest in mind, and try to help all the human family. And it is going to call upon them to share resources that they might otherwise want to husband and restrict so they can give their great grandchildren, a Mercedes Benz for their 16th birthday when they get their driver's license. I mean, but the bottom line is that we think that we can, even though we can't, in pursuant to your question, not that we're necessarily going to be able to persuade them that they ought to give up some increased percentage of all the wealth that they are garnering, but we believe that we can convince most everybody else, okay, and that we can do this peacefully, and we can do this through constitutional means, and that we can get a readjustment in the power structures on our planet. And I would hasten to point out, without revealing too much information, at least that I've been given.
Feel free to reveal too much information. We really don't mind.
That one of the things that they believe to be an element of what they refer to as catastrophic disclosure is too much of an adjustment in the power structure of the planet. That the national security state people believe that they've been charged with the responsibility of preserving the present power structure. I guess that shouldn't surprise you too much.
Not at all.
But they view that as part of their mission, so that we at the New Paradigm Institute have a different mission. We're trying to amend the power structures to be more just, more equitable, more probable to generate peace and harmony on the planet than war, okay, which may deprive them of some of their budget.
Yep, it sure would.
Well,
sure
Tom,
would.
we said this on the show not so long ago. I think I came up with it and said that what if one of the reasons why disclosure was being prevented from happening was that post-disclosure we get to see other species, other ways of life, and what happens when we see a different system that would work so much better for mankind, but would mean that all the people that are currently in power lose their power. And I think that that's a big reason behind it, is because perhaps there is a better way of doing things out there that doesn't revolve around commerce and war. Who is it who said that, when will the war end? It won't. It's supposed to carry on. It just moves from country to country. It's a machine, and we need to find a way and realize that there is an alternative way, because we're told that we're this warfaring species and we're aggressive and we're Neanderthals and we're cavemen in comparison.
I know how much you hate hearing that about us too. You feel so differently, and I do too.
It's because it's not us. It's less than 1% of us that decide they have the right and the ability to speak for us. But I don't think people as a whole are aggressive, stupid, dumb species that we keep getting told that we are time and time again. And I think we need disclosure to wake us up and realize, that we, what we are as a species, and it's not what we think we are.
I agree with
Rant
that.
over. No, it was just a statement. I like to go off on a little tirade every now and again.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that's why the issue that's raised of the spiritual dimension of this is what some of the people, that's pursuant to your question, this must be like a cult, because these people are saying things that sounds kind of like spiritual. And whenever you start making spiritual noises, that they think, oh, you must be some kind of spiritual cult. We're not a spiritual cult. We just believe that there are some values and policies that are much more beneficial to our human family in keeping people happy and mutually prosperous and healthy. And some people say, yeah, well, that's the same stuff that cults talk about. But they don't. I mean, what really becomes a cult, are not necessarily committed to real, genuine spiritual values. They're into power, and they're into domination, and they're into manipulation and duplicity and deception and stuff. That's what distinguishes a cult. We're trying to be as open as we possibly can be, and as transparent as we can possibly be. So I think that we'll survive people pecking at our ankles, and trying to accuse us of being or whatever else they're saying. That's right. And you have to be inured to those kind of attacks. Now that people have access to the internet, and that no matter what you say, there's going to be somebody sitting in the basement of his house, or his mother's house actually probably, and saying, look, I think you're an asshole, and I'm going to say so, and I'm supposed to what, lose sleep over that, or become distressed about it, or even bother paying attention to it, but people are telling me that I need to pay more attention to it than I have in the past because I can't just tell them to fuck off, because then they're going to get even more angry, and then we just have a side war going on. So the bottom line is I'm trying to be much more careful about that. I'm not trying to denigrate them. I'm just suggesting that that they have been brought up in a particular culture. They have not had the same advantages that some other people may have had to get an education. That they may have been born into a particular culture that is uniquely closed-minded. That's all possible. And that if we had more time, I would agree with you that maybe we should spend more time trying to get those people to understand the things that we're saying. But given the exigencies of the moment that we're in, what we're trying to do is try to gather people together who my experience over 50 years of doing public interest work. There's no other issue that I've encountered that has such widespread, completely bipartisan support. That old people, young people, white people, black people, right-wing people, left-wing people, regular, middle, marginalist people. They all say, yeah, let's get more disclosure here. Except for the private aerospace companies, corporations, their stockholders, and the individual members of Congress who they pay, and pay for their campaigns. And people know that. People have been educated enough to realize that that's a problem we've got. And if we're going to have to reform some of our political structures in order to get the kind of change that people really want to have, that may be an ancillary benefit of what we're doing. That will help reform some of the political structures to suggest that there's something wrong with bringing in a paper bag full of $100 bills and putting them on the desk of a congressman to get him to vote to give you more profits. Now, that used to be illegal. They used to arrest people and put people in jail for that. But now they think it's cool, and so that we'll have to try to see if we can change enough minds in the country to get that to stop happening.
I'm curious, do you think that we will see more hearings this year, or do you think that sort of side of it's going to be put on hold due to the election coming up later on in the year?
No. I think that we still have a window open to have at least one more hearing. I would suggest that it's more likely than not to be on the Senate side than the House side. I'm privy to some information on the Senate side and also on the House side as to why the House may be less inclined to do that. There are particular chair people who have taken positions there should be no more hearings and stuff on the House side because they think it's making the Defense Department look bad. was actually the quote. You can't have any more of these kind of hearings. It's making the Defense Department look bad. My position has been, I'm not making them look bad. They're making themselves look bad.
Yeah, I was about to say they've done a pretty good job of that themselves.
I was going to say I don't have to pull any of those levers. But the bottom line is that I believe that there's still time to have adequate hearings. We have the entire summer here. You remember it was July 26th of last year that David Brush actually testified. So it was right in the midst of when they think it's a summer break that people I think we have time for one more session of this before we all become bathed in chaos around the upcoming election. Yeah.
So I'm really curious. When I found out that we were going to be having a conversation with you, there's something that's been stirring in my mind for a very long time, and I'm sure you've discussed this a million times, but I've never heard anybody ask this particular question about it. You had access to the classified Blue Book archives, and you had, everybody knows the story. You documented that the symbols that were observed on a crashed craft, et cetera, et cetera. Have you ever done any sort of analytical work on that, as far as what they could have meant, or do you have any insight as far as what they could have potentially translated to?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, if I had been able to keep the copy of the exact copy of exactly what the structure was of the symbols that were there, I would have done that. I would have done something similar to what we did with the telegram in the hand of General Ramey.
Right.
You know, that we were directly involved in that, of getting it digitized and blown up and translated. You know, I definitely would have done that. The problem is that, as I said, you know, I it's absolutely mind blowing. But you know that I had the actual yellow pad in with the Jesuit documents that I had, the Jesuit office documents. And when we moved, so I didn't get to take all the Jesuit documents with me when I left the Jesuit headquarters, but I believe I took that one as part of the files, and then we brought them to California and left them in storage in this now whatever they call those things, those big storms that come in California. That rain for like 8 straight days, just
like a
poured
monsoon.
down. Yeah, well, it's like a monsoon, whatever they call them. You know, but the bottom line is, it flooded out the place where we had stored documents, and the owners of the storage place actually took it upon themselves to throw away documents that they thought were so waterlogged, and I mean, without ever consulting us. And so the next time we got back into the storage facility to kind of go through everything, we didn't really do a comprehensive cataloging of what we had or what we didn't have. But I do know that when we finally brought the files to our central office, and we actually took the time, we were doing one legal case after another, you know, and we were tossing stuff into the archives and just kept on going, doing one case after another. But we finally got a big enough facility. Bishop Gonzalez here gave us access to the whole top floor of the former Holy Cross High School here in Santa Cruz, so we could spread out all of the documents we had. You know, we had like, I don't know, 10,000 books, you know, that we've got carrying around in boxes. So that what we did is we finally got the archives opened up and started having a person full time going through what it is we found. I mean, I found, you know, copies of the letter that Mayor John Lindsay wrote, you know, appointing me to be the lawyer for the inmates in the House of Corrections in Manhattan, you know, and wow. I found the document, you know, offering me to be the candidate for New York for the Rhodes Scholarship. We've dug stuff out of the archives, but that pad is not here, you know. And so I think myself, you know, I can redraw what they look like, but the sequence in which they would occur is different than I'm sure that it was then. Now, someday maybe I'll get hypnotized and I'll be able to go back and remember, you know, here's exactly what it looked like. That's probably worth doing now that you bring.
I can help you there.
Yeah,
I can help you there.
Yeah, right. You know.
No, I can. My wife is a regression hypnotherapist.
Okay, because I got absolute plain view of it, and very importantly, from a tactile point of view, I traced them. As you know, I physically traced the exact symbols, you know, in the exact order that they were in. So it's there, and I'm sure it's in my memory, so that then we would be able to subject that to some kind of computer AI stuff that probably the AI would read it and say, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to discuss that."
Well, I tell you what I'll do for you, Danny. I will personally convince my wife to help you out, should you wish, for free. She does it all online anyway.
I don't have to come to Morocco.
No, it will be
you
done
can do
online.
it over
all
stream.
online. all online. Although if if you do fancy visiting, it's a lovely country.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm hypnotizable. They say
No
that
such
the
thing.
Irish, yeah, that's right. I'm assuming that's true. There's no such thing. So
No.
I would be delighted to kind of retrace those things back, and then undertake whatever processes we need to see. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
That's it. And
That would be
and we could
remarkable.
actually draw the actual details of it.
I think it could
and
be
that,
done.
I reckon it could be done.
And my
I've seen what
aunt
she's
has
done.
photographic memory, and she knows a lot about memory as a result of having that. And she even told me that even for individuals that don't have photographic memory, that it's all stored in there. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
individuals
Yeah,
who
I'm
can
sure it
have
is.
better access to it. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So there is a way to retrieve that without question.
Yeah,
There
I'm
is.
sure. That's way cool. Yeah, I
I'm on
hadn't
it.
thought.
I'm on it. I'll speak to her in the morning. It's late here, so.
So, there is one fun question that we have to ask, and it's gonna probably get a giggle out of you, but without any specifics at all. That's not where because you can't obviously.
Yeah.
Are you or have you ever been in possession of any undisclosed information that, if it was released to the public, would significantly alter the discourse surrounding the phenomenon itself?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
I like that answer.
I like the
I like
pause.
that. I like that answer a lot. And I
Danny,
like the pause as well.
I know we've got you for an hour and a half, and we're running out of time. So I just wanted to say, what would you like to get across to people about the New Paradigm Institute? How can people help? How can people support you?
Well, the most important thing to do is to go on the website at newparadigminstitute.org. I mean, the advantage is that we're spending lots and lots of our time putting together a website and embedding the information so that people can go there and get fairly easy access to all kinds of information. And we're, Richard Dolan and I are working on this list of 100 facts, with the kind of footnotes to them that are retrievable so people can go find it. And we're trying to get embedded into the footnotes, where they can just click on it and go see the document for themselves. So that we're trying to set this up as the aperture through which people can come. And you just go to newparadigminstitute.org. And then I haven't even seen what the latest iteration of the website looks like, but it's getting better and better all the time. And people are happy with it. And what they're doing is they're sending contributions to us to help build out the website. That it isn't paying us. It isn't paying us any income, but it's going directly to Cosmic, which is the company that we have that knows how to build these kind of major websites. And I just had a meeting that I actually jumped up at 2 minutes to 2 to jump on here with you guys. A meeting with a person who's a major public education expert and a marketing expert who've agreed to volunteer their time to us pro bono, to try to figure out how we can share the information that's specifically designed to be reaching different educational levels.
Oh, it's wonderful.
That presume a certain set of a certain matrix of on the part of people at different educational levels to be able to process information, and they figured some of this out so that we can tell what basically amounts to like a Sufi tale, that is being told at four or five different levels at the same time. It's all the exact same information, but that people can absorb differing amounts of it, and so that we're trying to do that. And we've got some staff hired. There was this wonderful lady, to show you how transparent we are. I mean, there's this wonderful woman who came forward and said that she believed that she had been abducted. We didn't do anything to tell her yes, no, indifferent. We didn't do, but she said that she would like to give us a major contribution so that we could rent a good office in Washington. And we ended up getting the office right on Capitol Hill. We called upon a lot of our old contacts and resources to get an office in the National Council of Churches building. It's the Methodist building, which, just as a lark, was actually built to help lobby on behalf of prohibition. Back like 1917 or something.
That's funny.
So that they're actually inside the federal enclave. That you got the United States Supreme Court and the Senate office building, the Congress right across the street, and there's our building, sitting right there, so that we can walk out the door and go to the Dirksen Senate office building to have lunch with the people that are in the Senate Intelligence Committee. She helped us be able to get that. And she's now getting set to give us another grant to be able to get it for a second year in a row. So it's that kind of thing that we're doing, and that we're going to be going down on June 5th. I leave this Thursday to go to Contact in the Desert to deliver, a 90-minute workshop, and then a 90-minute keynote lecture, and then a 2-hour intensive. I'm on 2 different panels that we're going to be discussing stuff. And then we drive immediately from there into Los Angeles, where we're going to be going to some people's homes up in Pacific Palisades and briefing a number of people in the Hollywood community to try to brief them up on, how to do real stories about what's going on now.
That's having interesting.
And so I did that in Iran Contra. I was over at I think it was Paramount Studios. People invited me, and I stood up for 3 hours and briefed all the different writers and producers and directors about what was going on in Iran Contra. And Die Hard came out of that. So that the whole thing with this Oliver North type character, or Die Hard 2, I think it was Die Hard 2. That there was this whole Oliver North character that was going to be, having Noriega be flown in, that had been arrested and was going to be flying him into the airport. And so that they decided to set up a pyramid, and they went off on this kind of fictional tangent, but it was based on factual information that we had given them. And so that we're doing that again. We're saying, look, we know all kinds of information about what's really real. I can't tell you some of the details information that we've gotten through potential attorney-client contacts, but I can give you information that I can tell you. You can take it. I guess you can take it to the bank if you want to.
That's fascinating.
But we're making this available to the public. We'll make it available to you, and you can ask questions, and you can bring script writers in if you want to talk to us. We'll tell you information. We're putting this information out to the public so that every means at our disposal can be used to get the information out to people. I've been critical. I said, look, I don't want you fictionalizing this, because you keep doing it. I've had this long talk with the guys who were the writer. You saw that Project Blue Book. Remember the thing that was on History Television?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was invited to go to a meeting where they were on stage and they were, presenting about here was the writer, here was the director, here was the showrunner, and everybody was, praising them for the great job they had done. And they asked me to get up and comment on it. And I said, look, I've got to be critical of this. That the reason I stopped watching the series, because by the time I got halfway through the 3rd episode, you were making stuff up.
Yes.
And going, you had AJ, Hynek, Alan Hynek, seeing a UFO right in front of him, melting a car, seeing a test tube, seeing UFO bodies in test tubes. And so I said, that was it for me. And the fact is, you should have stuck to the truth.
Yes.
And what they said is, well, we didn't know enough of the truth. And I said, well, you will now. Okay. And so now we're working with those guys.
Good. No,
to
that's
say, look,
that's amazing.
You guys need to do some kind of a series where you're sticking to the truth here. Okay. And we can make the truth available to you. We can get you in touch with whistleblowers if they choose to try to tell you the information, but you can't pay them.
Yeah.
You can't pay them for the information. I'm only going to present people to you who want to tell you this because they want people to know, and then what you guys need to do is you need to use, instead of making private profit on this, you can get a reasonable return to pay your staff and stuff for doing stuff, but then you got to give the rest of it to somebody else, not to us. You can't give it to us. That surprises them, of course. They're like, what? No, you can't give it to us because we're not trying to participate in generating money for ourselves.
Yeah.
But you got to give it. You got to give the profits to somebody else that are working on this issue. And so that we're in. It's easy when you really. I don't want to sound pontifical, but when you have kind of a pure heart, it's easy to make decisions to what to do and what to say. Now, it is a little complicated now because I have this attorney-client relationship, and I've met people through the attorney-client relationship that I wouldn't otherwise know, and they'd say things to me that they wouldn't otherwise say. Right. And so I've agreed to not tell about that, but I will not take a security clearance, which I've been asked to take 2 or 3 times. I'm not going to accept a security clearance because then I wouldn't be able to tell anybody anything. They'd all keep saying, "Oh no, you must have gotten that from some confidential source." So, but I said, "Don't worry, I can find out everything that is going to be available to find out without getting a security clearance."
That's right. I'd say, is there any benefit for you to have one? I'm sure you already know enough.
Yeah, I get it quicker. I get it quicker and more immediate and more direct. But then I wouldn't be able to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
So I'll stay at this thing. We'll slug away at this thing, and we'll get the information. We'll be able to figure out answers to questions that we get from individual pieces. Some people will still talk to me. I get to talk to people. I got to talk to the guy who was the head of the entire Central Intelligence Agency physical surveillance system for looking for UFOs.
Wow.
Talk to him. And I didn't have any security clearance.
Yeah, quite.
Wow. I'd like to talk to them too.
Danny, thank you so much for your time today. I know Tom and I both really, really appreciate it, and I know all of our viewers are really looking forward to seeing this episode. So I thank you so much, and hopefully we can get to speak to you further on down the line when more things come out. I will harass my wife in the morning to contact you, and we can see if we can unlock that hidden data hidden away in the back of your grey matter there.
Don't ask me any security questions that I.
No, we can't do that. We won't do that.
We won't do anything like that.
We'll focus on the symbols.
We'll stay focused on that. All right, just call me, guys. You can see how reluctant I am to talk.
Thank you so much, Danny, for your time. We really appreciate it.
We really
do. Terrific. All right.